You know, it's funny, but when you get married at a young age and you have kids, you ruin your life. You ruin your life because you rob yourself of a life. Now, look, if you're married and you're young and you have kids, you know, it is what it is. You know, you're not going to wish your kids away, and you're not going to regret having them. But if you don't have kids when you're young, don't have kids. Not for a while. But because kids are a commitment. They're a major, major commitment. You know, it's 24/7 commitment. You know, 2 o'clock in the morning, Mom, Dad. You know, it just never ends. Never ends. And I'm not saying not do it. Of course you should do it. It's the experience you don't want to not have. But try to have an experience of a life, you know, too. And if you get pregnant at 18, or you're a guy and you have a girl pregnant at 18, you got no life after that. You know, the kid is your life. You know, now there are benefits to that, because when you're 30 or 40 and everybody else is having babies and your kid's 20 in college, you know, you can look at it from that perspective. So. But everything has a price, you know. And that's why a lot of the young people that get married and have kids, they get divorced right away. They get divorced. Because they're not mature enough to continue a relationship. And with the baby's like crack in the family. You know, it's like, it never works out well. There's too much stress. There's too much stress. The bills are astronomical. And when you're 18 or 20, you can't pay those bills, you know. And if you're living with mom and dad, they let you know every time they do pay a bill, you know. So it's just hard. There's no easy way out. There's no easy way out. But find yourself, you know. You know, God's got a person out there for you, and that's why I don't worry. You know, God has a person for me. I think it's him. But I don't know. I think that's the problem. I think God wants to marry me. You know. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to have a holier than now marriage. You know, but and that's why he won't let anybody near me, because I'm his, and that's it. But or her, you know, because when you talk about God, you know, you can't use the him or her term, because it really doesn't exist. You know, it's not like God has a 20-incher or anything. You know, it's just, it doesn't work. You know, and humans have put the him and the her on the gods, but that doesn't mean it's true, and that doesn't mean it worked. And yes, I just farted again. I don't know. I had pizza tonight and I had gelato, so I guess it gives me gas. But I like talking like this. You know, this is cool because I don't have an audience. I don't have to get stressed out. I don't have to go for the crowd laugh. I know you're laughing when I make jokes, but I don't need to sit there and be like, well, they haven't laughed in the last 10 minutes. I gotta tell a joke. You know, I'm gonna lose them if I don't tell a joke. You know, I don't have to go through all that crap that you go through with a crowd. You know, I'm not saying I won't in the future, but right now this is like school. You know, so I'm learning. And that's all God's ever done to me my whole life. School. That's why I didn't go to school. That's why I didn't go to high school. Because God was like, I got your own school. I got school for you. You don't need to go to high school. I got you covered. You know, and it's like, you know, I'm very bad at Jeopardy. I can't answer 90% of those questions. I can't answer 90%. And I'll tell you straight up, I can't, you know. And it's not that I'm stupid. You know that. It's just that none of that helped me conquer the world or conquer the devil, you know. what book author wrote what and what line came from what book. It doesn't help me conquer the world. And that's all I concentrated on, if it wasn't helping me, it wasn't part of something I was doing, And then some of the questions, you can tell Jeopardy with time, because they said, they referenced Stairway to Heaven. They're like, what band created Stairway to Heaven? All three of them didn't even buzz in. Couldn't tell you. That was Led Zeppelin. Couldn't tell you. So, over time, it becomes ridiculous. I spoke to a girl at the psych ward, I was telling her to tell the nurse not to call me. And she said something like, kick rock. I'm like, what? I'm like, what'd you say? Yeah, you want me to tell her to kick rock? I'm like, yeah, I guess so. Okay, do that. I was like, whatever. But, the kids have their own language, And forget it with the emoji thing and the internet thing with, like LOL kind of thing. But I don't know what 90% of those things are. And it's not because I don't want to. I don't want to waste my time doing that when I could be conquering the world, doing something else. So obviously it paid off because I conquered the world. So you can't say I was wrong. I'll get to Jeopardy when I have time. Right now I don't have time.